do not have to switch your cameras on unless you do want to be famous on YouTube. You're more than welcome to keep your cameras off. I realize that a lot of us living in South Africa are dealing with load shedding. And from those of you visiting us from the outside borders of South Africa, you might be having data connection issues. So I have no problem with no cameras on, but I welcome you warmly, nonetheless, to this 10th session of all things speech contests in District 74. This afternoon, this session is about the international speech contest. We have spoken quite a lot about the contest as we've been going through these sessions, obviously from a judge's perspective, from the briefing perspective, from the script perspective. We have covered a lot to do with the international prepared speech contest. But I wanted to open up the floor and make this a much more interactive session, hopefully, than we've had previously, where you are most welcome to ask questions, make comments, tell us your story, share your story. Hi, Fernando, thank you so much for joining us. Share your story, share your questions, your concerns, your considerations, anything to do with the international speech contest. As we all know, the international speech contest is the contest that specifically is the judging of contestants that have a pre-prepared presentation of 5 to 7 minutes. They are allowed to choose any topic they want. They are allowed to choose their own title. And it's the only contest out of our 3 official contests in District 74 where the winner after the district contest at conference will go through to the international contest and the semifinals thereof. So it is an extremely exciting contest. It's an extremely nerve-wracking contest for our contestants, but at least they do get to prepare, unlike the other 2 contests, table topics and evaluation, when there is no preparation. So it is wonderful. There's a lot of preparation that is done leading up to this contest for the contestants. And then obviously from the organizing guys, the organizing teams, there's a lot of work that goes in putting this particular contest together. So like I said, I would like to make this particular session where we're all together here today a much more interactive session and not Kirsten Bosworth doing all of the talking. So what I would like to encourage you, Lynette, thank you so much for being online again, because you always get me going. Hello, hello, hello. What I would really like to happen is those of you that have experience in international speech contests, let's start with you first. What if somebody said to you, here's a table topic for you. If somebody said to you, what is the most important thing about the international speech contest? If a new member said to you, what is the most important thing I need to know about the international speech contest? What would you tell them? What would you share with them? Who would like to get me started? Hello, Gabrielle. So good to see you again. Thank you so much for logging on again. Dimitri, yes, sir. You never shy. I love it. What would you say?
My opinion, and it's just my opinion, you are there to pick the best speech that will represent the district. That's your main job.
What does that mean? What does that mean?
What that means is this the speech that will go forward? Is this the speaker that has wowed you, that has blown your socks off, that did the best job on the day, that you want to represent? And of course, here you're adding your club, your area, your division, you know, whatever the level of the contest may be. And it's the person on that night who's done that speech. Forget about the rest.
I think that's a very key point. So number one is to go through to the international level, onto that international stage and represent our district. That's the speaker and that's the speech we're looking for. I think that's very key. Number two, Dimitri made a really good point, and you can see that he's a very experienced judge. It's on the night. So as judges, we need to continuously remind ourselves that we do not know this member in any other context except on that stage for those 5 to 7 minutes. That's it. So that we bring nothing else to the table except judge them based on that performance, that presentation. So 2 very valuable points that Dimitri brought through there. Thank you, Dimitri. Zani, thank you so much for putting up your hand. Welcome,
Sure.
welcome. And you logged on nice
I've
and
got-
early. You got the first prize for being here. So yes, please go ahead.
Sure, I've got some people in my club that's going to take part for the first time that's on the school. So what I would like to share is, as a speaker, what you need to keep in mind is that your general purpose is to inspire your audience, and that you need to come up with a very clear, specific purpose. What is that one sentence, that one core message that you want to tell the audience? You need to be able to summarize that. So that's where I would start when you're thinking about your speech. How are you going to inspire them, and what's that message that you're going to tell them, like in one sentence? Yeah.
Danny, it's a very valid point. And something to remember though is on the judges' ballot, it asks for the judges to identify the purpose and the message of the actual speech, but it does not specify that the purpose needs to be inspirational. It doesn't specify that the purpose needs to be entertaining / humorous. So we are, as contestants, permitted and will not be marked down if we give a presentation that is going to persuade, inspire, inform, or entertain. So those are the 4 categories that Toastmasters International has taught us through the years. And they hold on to those 4 categories. If you look at, all of our pathways tutorials, those 4 categories are available to all the speakers. However, I think you raise a really good point that if you want to move an audience and you want to get them up and get them going, then probably being inspiring is the best way to do that. When you're informing an audience, possibly they could come across a bit dry and not as exciting as inspiring. But it is not compulsory, and no judge is allowed to mark against you if you choose one of the other 3 categories besides inspiring, or one of the 3 other purposes besides inspiring. But it's a really good point. I think that your second point about a takeaway, that takeaway message, Madeleine, I see your hand. I'm definitely going to hand over to you now. One of our previous winners, I attended one of his master classes, and when I say I mean international best speaker of, world champion. He said, and to me, this just holds the most water, a good speaker gets remembered. A great speaker gets repeated. So you want that takeaway. Definitely. You want something that people will take away and repeat. Madeleine, go for it. Loving the new hairstyle, by the way. Love it, love it, love it.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I thought the same as Zani, that it needs a message. That's a big thing. But the other thing is, for me, to a speaker about practicing their speech, they need to really set up a Zoom setup, record themselves, firstly, to appreciate how it's going to feel when you see nobody, you have no interaction, and that you stay in time, because people fall out so often because of time. So to a speaker, I would say, practice in front of your computer in Zoom. You can record yourself.
Madeleine, I think that is a phenomenal piece of advice that I really hope everyone in the room takes back to their contestants and participants. Phenomenal, phenomenal piece of advice. We are very, very different on Zoom. Everybody is very different. Some of us are highly photogenic and some of us not so much. Some of us in real life are 6 foot tall. So when I want to stand up and give a speech, you have no idea what a tower I need to build for my camera to get my whole entire body into the actual video frame. Whereas other people don't have that challenge. To actually do it in Zoom, you just have to open up Zoom, and in your own little, click on new meeting, record that meeting and do your presentation. And then that recording's available to you. Madeleine, that is a nugget of gold, a whole bag of gold there. Thank you so very, very much. Dimitri, yes, please share, please share.
Yes, me again, from the guy who has a face for radio. As a speaker,
I'm your partner.
You should do yourself a favor and go and look at the last, let's say, 10 years worth of winning speeches. How many of those are not emotive, inspirational, and with a universal theme? So if you want to go all the way to the international stage and win, then perhaps that's your guideline.
Absolutely. Dimitri, I think that's very, very valid. Remember, every single year at international level and at district, division, and area level, we have different judges. And, they're human beings and everyone's at a different stage in their life. So like Dimitri says, instead of watching one contest, it's much better to watch the recordings of at least 10 contests, 10 winning speeches, because you will get a much better idea of what the judges generally are looking for, and to identify the purpose and the message in each one of those presentations, and identify why they won, why they were the best on the day. So you could do a lot more homework, contestants, and watch the winning speech and the speech that came second, so that you can actually now see the difference, why this one made such a huge difference versus that one. The amazing thing is we also, with international conference, we get to see the semi-final videos, and it's the difference in those presentations between what somebody presented on that night, on that video, versus that night of the final contest. Sometimes there's quite big contrast. And again, it's down to the fact that the judges cannot think about the past. They have to focus on that presentation in that context only and limit it to that context. So yes, absolutely. Dimitri, very, very good point. Do your homework.
And by the way, that's not just for contestants. If, like me, you're absolutely insane and you've made judging your unpaid for profession, you should definitely be looking at all of those speeches and not looking at the results. Judge the speeches and compare yourself. Practice.
And compare. Very good. I mean, it's an excellent way to see how your judging compares to those judges that were sitting in that room at that time. 100%. It's the best way to learn, because you will notice certain things and realize that possibly you weren't actively listening to certain parts of that presentation. Lynette, I'd like you to ask you to unmute yourself. It's very unlike you to be typing so much. Go for it, Lynette. All of those messages you put in the chat box, I'm ignoring them.
You're ignoring them. Everyone else is reading. No, probably not. Dimitri made a very good point, is that people must, beyond your borders, so beyond your club, your culture, your district, people must still be able to identify you with your message. I saw a speech a couple of years ago, and I thought as soon as it leaves the shores of District 74, no one can identify with it. And I don't remember specifically who it was, but it was, and it didn't, the person proceeded and they didn't get beyond, I don't know if there was regional finals then, but they didn't get beyond that, because it's very good for District 74, but it didn't translate. And the other point is, speakers must learn to pin the timer.
Yeah.
Practice it beforehand, practice, because if you cannot see the timer and you don't know how to pin it, you're at an immediate disadvantage, because you become nervous as well, because you're not sure what the time is. And relying on your own timing device is great, but it's not the contest timing device, and you might be 1 or 2 seconds out.
Lynette, thank you for that share. Anton, is it Antonian? Please don't, Vandermerwe, please don't disappear. I'm going to hand over to you now. But just to reiterate what Lynette said, I couldn't agree with her more. Number one, make sure that your contestants are creating presentations that can internationally translate, global scale translate. The judges sitting in the regional and the semifinals and the final at an international level are not all from North America. It's worldwide. So the presentations do definitely need to speak to that. Then Lynette raised another very, very valid point. Your timer that you activate when you start speaking as a contestant might be 1 or 2 seconds ahead or 1 or 2 seconds behind when the timers actually push their timing devices. So please do learn how and encourage your contestants to practice in club meetings and do a Zoom meeting with them where there is the two of you so that they can, practice spotlighting. You see, the universe is telling me not spotlighting, pinning, so that they can practice pinning their timers. They are allowed to pin both timers, and it's a really, really good idea that they do so. Just in case one of the timers falls offline, and they're able to see it. But it is crucial, that timing. There is nothing more devastating than being disqualified based on time when you've had so much time to actually prepare and practice. So very, very good point, Lynette. Thank you. Antonin, Madeleine, I'm coming back to you now. Antonin, am I pronouncing that correctly?
Yeah, that's 100%. Thank you very much. Good evening.
Evening.
I just want to ask a question as a newbie in this competition. I'm not quite sure if you do a speech in your club and you win the club competition, you go on to the area and so forth. Do you every time you use the same speech and round it off, or do you do a different speech every time, or you're in a new competition?
That is an amazing question, and thank you so much for asking it. And that's why I love the mix in the room where we have new members and more experienced members. So according to the contest rules, you can deliver any speech you want at any level. However, it takes a lot to prepare so many speeches for contest level. And that is something for your contestants to consider. If they are professional speakers and they have time on their hands, obviously they can go and create a new speech for every level. But generally speaking, what happens is the club winner uses the same speech at area, at division, and then at district. However, when you now get into the whole outside of district international pool and you're going through the regional and the semifinals through to the final, you can't deliver the same speech in the final that you used for the previous rounds. So if you get past and you become our district speaker of the year, our great winner here for District 74, you've won over 12 countries. You need to have 2 speeches ready. Definitely need to have practiced, polished, and have 2 speeches ready. Equally capable in both of them. Because I know some of our international competitors in the past, they've actually swapped at the last minute and decided to do their second speech in the entry levels. And then they did what was going to be, their other speech on the stage. So it's they need to be equally polished in both of those speeches. But going through to district, you are more than welcome and encouraged to have 1 presentation, but you can have multiple if you so feel you want to. Madeleine.
Yes. So for me, we talk a lot about people going through to area and winning and maybe going international, but there's also a thing of in your club, people may not want to enter because they think they're not going to win. So it's also important to get a message through that this is an opportunity to learn. And so many times people, even Verity has said she's, and the first time she entered, she came second or something like that because she just didn't practice enough. So it's just somehow important to encourage people to still enter because of all the learning they get out of it.
Madeleine, I think that is another great nugget. Thank you so much for sharing. We've got such amazing input here today. Absolutely. And the reason why that is so important is because when you give a speech at a club level, you get a gorgeous, gentle evaluation. And we all feel warm and fuzzy and motivated to speak again. In a contest, you get judged. And there's a whole stack of criteria. So for a contestant, that experience, because in all honesty, if they want to speak to an audience of complete strangers, if they want to get onto the professional stage and become a motivational speaker or a keynote speaker or lead a public board of directors, they're going to be judged. It's human nature. So this is an excellent opportunity for them to practice in a safe place and understand if they're getting their message across. Madeleine, thank you. Excellent point. Gabriela, please share. So good to hear from you. Please share with us.
Thank you. Well, it's not a nugget, it's a question. Who goes forward? We speak about the winner. At some time we had not enough people and first and second went forward. And this time, how many people have we got? And from each contest, who is going forward? Just the winner and the second place, or just the winner?
Okay, very good question. Very good question. And your contest chair and chief judge need to know this before your contest runs at whatever level you are. So what you do is you go and have a look at the dashboard, the DCP goals dashboard. So the Distinguished Club Program dashboard. And on the tab where it talks about your club, if you have a look at the top there, there's another tab, 2 tabs down or to the left, that says division and area. I think, Lynette, is that correct? Division and area. And when you go in there, you will see how many clubs are in your area and how many areas are in your division. And then you make a decision and a call, and you double check it with your area director and your division director. The call is as follows. If there are 4 or less clubs in your area that are in good standing, okay, they've been marked as good standing, they've got a little Y next to their name, then you need to, if there's 4 or less, then you need to send 2 contestants through, first place and second place. If there is 5 or more, then you only send 1 through. So if you go into the division, if your division has got 4 or less areas, then the areas are going to send 2 winners through. If there are 5 or more areas, they're only going to send 1 winner through. So that number 4 is quite critical.
Sorry, Gabriela is in D2 where there's 5 clubs, just so you know.
Thank you, Madeleine. See, someone's finger fast. So you've got 5 clubs, Gabriela, and they're active clubs, Madeleine. I'm going to share my screen quickly so everybody can see. On my
Yes,
side.
they're all active. They're all good standing and active and entering.
Okay, so I'm going to quickly show you on my screen where Madeleine got that from. So we're in dashboards.toastmasters.org, and we're in the DCP page there. So this is where you would land. You would land on your club status. But what we do is we rather go through. Oh, she clicked like a silly fool. You rather go through and have a look at your division. And now Toastmasters website is getting all shy because I'm online and they're being recorded, obviously. Okay, so you go and have a look here at your division and area, and you literally scroll down to your very particular club. You go find yourself in your division and your area, and then you will see here that the paid clubs in this particular area 1 of division A, paid clubs is 5. So they are only going to send 1 contestant through to area. And now in Division A, they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 areas. So they again are only going to send 1 winner through to division. And that's exactly how you go and check for all of your clubs, your areas, and your divisions. 4 or less, don't go through. So you can see here, area, let me quickly just scroll down, area 1, they started with 4, they've jumped right up to 8. I mean, how fantastic is that? But if they were still on 4, then they would have, they would be sending 2 through. Now they will only be sending 1 through.
Kirsten, if you go to Division A, Area A3, you get a good example there. There's 5 clubs there, but 2 of them are not paid up. So there's only 3 clubs technically. So definitely in those 3 clubs, first and second place will go forward.
Very good point. Thank you for that, Lynette. Excellent example. Excellent example. So this is where you check. You check this paid clubs number, because those are the clubs that are currently in good standing at the time of this contest season. So this is where we check. Okay. Does that answer your question? Perfect. Okay, Michelle, Transformer Michelle, yes.
Hello. So I have a comment and a curiosity question. So just also being relatively, I think I'd still call myself a newbie to the Toastmasters, having only experienced, speech contest once last year, and then obviously as role player this year. And being witness, I think something that comes to my mind in terms of my own consideration to be a contestant next year is having that balance of expectations and encouragement for those mentors to anybody that is obviously a newbie or a relative newbie going into the contest. And I think there were a couple of points made earlier tonight about you may be wowed at your club and you get that confidence, and then you get to the next level and suddenly not a wow. And it's got nothing to do with you as an individual, as a speaker. It's merely a growth opportunity, or that in that particular next level, there were just more competent or more experienced speakers. You maybe have been going up against speakers that have been doing this for 4, 5, 10, 15 years. So I think there's a balance between expectation as well as, having that level of encouragement to still encourage our new members or our newish members to participate as a contestant in the speech contest. So that's sort of my comment.
Yeah.
Then my curiosity question was, if and if it's possible to find out, on average, those contestant winners of the past, is there sort of like a metric that says, well, the average years as a member, are we talking about newbies, lifers, people that have been in Toastmasters 4 or 5 years that are winning these contests, or is it brand new people? Just out of curiosity.
So it's a really good point you've made there, Michelle. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to reiterate what Michelle is saying. Encourage your club members to have this experience. And encourage your judges to stick to the judging ballot requirements. Because what happens, unfortunately, and what Michelle's highlighted, and I've seen it happen, and it breaks my heart, is somebody will get through possibly because the judges were lazy or emotionally caught up or whatever it might be. And then that person actually is not delivering a contest speech for the next level. Judging in this contest is critical. Please choose the right people and make sure that those people are ready with the knowledge on how to judge. It is critically important, very, very important. So a very good point. And encourage your contestants to compete, realizing that it is an experience gaining opportunity. The other point that Michelle made about all of the speakers internationally, Dimitri, if I can give you 30 seconds, because I know you have watched possibly the most of these presentations, winning presentations, then all of us put together and stirred with a spoon. On average, do you think there is an average? And from my knowledge, there isn't a norm or an average of the winners.
In terms of experience.
Yeah, membership, no, membership, not life experience, membership service.
Yes, yes. No, I'm talking within a Toastmasters context. There's very, very few. It has happened in Toastmasters history, but there's very, very few champions who haven't been on the contesting circuit multiple times. In fact, we had one visiting here in our district quite a few years ago. I think his name was Mohammed, if I recall correctly. I spent quite a bit of time with him. He was probably the least experienced, and he had already been trying for about 3 or 4 years. And he was in fact shocked that he got through. And this is a conversation that I had with him. Like literally almost this exact conversation. And he was shocked because he was up against people who were on their 10th, 12th, 15th contest. They've just been doing it again and again and again. And he saw the progression. So it's about you growing as a speaker at each level. And we all grow at a different rate. But I'm not aware of anybody that's decided on Monday morning, first thing, I'm going to start entering contests. And 9 months later, they're the international speaking champion. Hasn't happened that I'm aware of. I'd love to see that speech if it has.
100%. It's definitely not months. There's definitely close to a year. And Lynette, I think even the winner this time, I think it was close to a year. That they had, or just over a year that they had been a winner. Hugo, you were next in the queue, and I saw you and Fernando sort of change spaces there. I'm just going to quickly jump to you, Hugo, and then I'm going to move on to Fernando.
Cool. Thanks, Kirsten. Can you hear me?
I can, clearly. Go for it, sir.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if this has been discussed already, but I think one of the things that I've realized is sometimes there's almost a disconnect between what a prospective speaker or a speaker prepares for and what the judges are actually looking for. So I think it's absolutely critical to establish what is it that makes a good speech. It's not always about the guy or the woman who's most well-spoken, right? Because sometimes that's what we think. Sometimes it's not about the color of the language. How colorful is his language? How good is her grammar? In many instances, it isn't any of that. It's many other factors, which I dare not to mention. So I think it's critical that one has an understanding of what is it that makes a great Toastmaster speech or a great Toastmaster as opposed to a general speaker. Because one could speak on many other platforms and do remarkably well, come to Toastmasters and then they'll fall flat on their face. Or they feel, hey, you know what? I've been speaking for 6 or 7 years, but I've come to Toastmasters and I haven't won. What is going on? Are the judges unfair? No, it's about aligning what the judges are looking for to your actual speech.
100%. And Hugo, thank you for that share. Even if it was mentioned earlier, it's really good to reiterate. This is the judge's guide and ballot. This is what you as contestants are being judged on. And this is the only criteria that our judges should be using. If the criteria is not listed on here, judges are not to include it at all and not to consider it. This right up to the international stage to find that champion, everybody uses this form. So our judges must be ready and our contestants must speak to the form, and it's all explained. The criteria is explained here. So it's very, very important. Thank you, Hugo, for reiterating that. Very, very important. Fernando, sir, what would you like to share with us? Thank you for patiently waiting in the queue. I saw all of your energetic facial expressions. You always are so animated. It's a pleasure speaking to you on camera. What would you like to share?
Thanks very much, Kirsten. It's one thing to share, the other thing, another thing to, and another question regarding Hugo's comment. Most definitely don't have to be the better speaker. I most definitely lost to someone who was not a better speaker than me last year, but that's just bitterness.
Do you want some vinegar with those chips, Fernando?
No, that one is still a serious sore spot for me, Kirsten. It's a serious sore spot for me because we're going to leave it there.
Okay.
I wanted to ask a particular question, which is regarding appeals, or if a judge's ballot is not quite kosher. Would a contestant be allowed to appeal? If they do, who do they appeal to? I'm noticing a lot of I've seen a lot of things on that ballot that are regarding speeches. Well, everybody knows the rant that I put on the WhatsApp group, where I'm not saying I'm against the video speeches. I'm saying that online speaking is a different format and it should be judged differently. And I think it can get a bit difficult for some judges to judge, for example, physical prowess and engagement of the audience. How can you do that online? So those are the two things. Can a contestant appeal? If yes, how? And number two, when we get to having to do the online thing, how can we coach our contestants to handle that? I've already said I'm bringing up putting this as a separate, as a different type of format to be contested. I know I can only do it in May. So what can we do for now, please?
Okay.
Thank you.
Fernando, thank you. Two very, very challenging questions. And to answer your first one, as per the rule book, there are only very specific reasons that will be accepted by the chief judge for a protest. So you can only protest on whether the presentation had more than 25% of someone else's words, whether that was a poem, a song, a quote, someone else's speech, whether it was written or said or whatever it was. If you have in your presentation more than 25% of someone else's words, not your original words, that is grounds for protest. Secondly, you can protest if the contestant references another contestant in the contest or something in their speech, another contestant's speech. Those are the only two reasons you are allowed to raise a protest. Those are the
how much time would you have to be able to raise?
In the 2 minutes while the judges are filling in their ballots before the chief judge has finished filling in collecting the ballots. In those 2 minutes.
Now you know the reason for the chip on my shoulder.
Okay, so you have those 2 minutes. So literally as soon as the contest is over and the contest chair calls for 2 minutes of silence while the judges complete their ballots for the last contestant and tally up their ballots to actually hand over to the ballot counters, that's when you get hold of the chief judge or the contest chair. As a contestant, only as a contestant or a voting judge can you lodge a protest. No one else can. No one else can. So during that period, you need to get hold of the chief judge and you need to basically put a motion to the floor that you would like this person to be disqualified based on originality or referencing a fellow contestant or their speech, And that chief judge then needs to call out all the judges. Your motion is then proposed, it gets seconded, it's open to discussion, the contestant gets called in, they get to defend themselves, they get to leave. Then the voting judges only, none of the contestants, the voting judges only, not the chief judge, not the tie-breaking judge. The voting judges only then vote on whether that person deserves to be disqualified or not. And their decision is final at the end of that collection. Okay.
Thank you.
Right, no problem. Then your second question, Fernando, just quickly remind me, sorry, I'm worried about time, so I was a little bit distracted.
The second question is, how do we coach our contestants when it comes to the online thing?
Okay.
Regarding physicality and engagement.
So I think that's a very valid point, and something to remember that even before we had COVID interrupting our lives, the regional and the semi-finals were all on video for the international speech contest. So before you got to that live stage at wherever international conference was holding, to get through those rounds, you were all on video. You weren't in person. So the next time after you left district, that you were judged in person was on that stage at finals, if you got through those 2 rounds. So the video environment, unfortunately, has been part of this contest since it began. And now it's becoming more and more. And that's one of the major reasons why District 74 at the Executive Council meeting put the motion forward, because we had to vote on whether we wanted hybrid or in person. And they voted in favor of exclusively in person, because district leaders have come to realize that it's the best way to prepare our contestants for the international stage. So yes, it is very different.
person.
Yeah. Madelia?
You said in person, you mean online?
Online, sorry. Thank you,
Yeah.
Madelia. Online, exclusively online. And at international, it's a hybrid contest. So you have people in the room competing with people outside of the room. Yeah, the winner last year was a guy in the room, and the guy who came second was outside of the room. So yeah, it really is open. Antonin, do you want to ask the last question of this afternoon?
Yes, thank you very much. I would just like to ask, is there any possibility, or may one, are you allowed to get the judges, how they judged you? Do you get feedback or evaluation or something? Because sometimes you're not sure, if you want to grow, you have to get feedback. So yeah, just that question.
It's a really, really good question, Mr. Van der Merwe, and I really wish I had a better answer for you, but the answer is no, 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 no. So when we used to have the in-person briefings, when our contest was still being held in person, as judges, we were actually told to eat our ballot forms and let them be destroyed by our stomach acids. That is how secret we need to keep our ballot forms, so that you never ever find out how we marked it. However, saying that out loud, you are most welcome to invite your fellow Toastmasters in the room to judge you, to use the ballot, to make on that ballot, and or give you a formal evaluation for a Pathways project. So if your speech qualifies for any of your projects, you can have a silent evaluation. You can double up 100%. And then if you've got people that you trust and, have experience in judging and know that ballot, get them to, I don't want to say play with you, but get them to do a mock environment so that you get that feedback. That would be my advice to you. But no, we cannot, and you should never know who the judges are, Mr. Van der Merwe. So you should never ever know who the judges are, and their ballots need to be destroyed, into the fire with the ring. That's where they're all going.
Okay. Thank you very much for that.
Pleasure. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much. Wow, I think we could go for another half an hour or so, but unfortunately, I know that all of you have lives outside of Toastmasters. Me personally, I get very irritated when real life interrupts my Toastmasters, but I'm sure you are not all the same. So thank you so much for logging on. I will be sharing the link to this video in the YouTube playlist, and you're more than welcome to share it with everybody you know in District 74 so that they can also learn. I mean, there was just so many really great nuggets that you should all be going home with a nice heavy handbag of gold. Lots of bling bling today. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. And we will be talking about, I think it's the table topics contest or the evaluation contest. One of them. We'll be talking about them. Have a great evening, guys. Bye.
Thanks, Kirsten.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye. Bye.